Shalom. Recently saw an article in Midstream Magazine about the derivation of one of the songs I love the most, AmYisrael Chai. The song goes like this: AmYisrael, AmYisrael, AmYisrael Chai. AmYisrael, AmYisrael, AmYisrael Chai. AmYisrael, AmYisrael, AmYisrael Chai. AmYisrael, AmYisrael, AmYisrael Chai. Od Avinu Chai, Od Avinu Chai. Od Avinu, Od Avinu, Od Avinu Chai. Od Avinu Chai, Od Avinu Chai. Od Avinu, Od Avinu, Od Avinu Chai. So what does it mean? AmYisrael Chai, the people of Israel still live. And then Od Avinu Chai, does our Father still live? So the article said that the song was written by Shlomo Carlbach. I didn't know that. And Od Avinu Chai, of course, is the phrase that Joseph uses in the Torah when he meets with his brothers, because he doesn't know if his father, Jacob, is still alive or not. And of course, one of the metaphorical understandings of that passage in the context of this song is the Jewish people live, like after the Holocaust, we still lived, but does Judaism still live? Does God still live? I want to assess that through the prism of the Torah portion in which I'm recording it in the week of Parshat Re'eh, because I think there's a lot to say about that. I just want to tell you about something else. It's not on the same level at all of Carlbach's song AmYisrael Chai, but I coined the expression to try and summarize Judaism simply using a mnemonic device: live, learn, and love. That we should live Jewishly, we should learn Jewishly, and we should love God and our fellow creatures, to summarize kind of basic Jewish principles. And our president announces that every Friday night at services, and Saturday morning, which he gives announcements. And I made a video about it, and it's part of the curriculum of our adult ed classes online. And so now when a convert comes to before our Beit Din and we ask them about Jewish values, quite often they'll say, I love the Jewish value of live, learn, and love. And the other rabbis say, what you talking about? Until they explain it. And I think through that prism, too, can understand whether or not the idea that Od Avinu Chai is true, that Judaism still lives in a substantive way. So first of all, what's in Parshat Re'eh is a kind of a little sample of the way to assess this. Well, it opens up with the idea that we should have that God gives us a choice between the path of bracha and klala, blessing and curse. It goes into the idea that there's going to be false prophets who are going to do all kinds of tricks and try and steer you away from God. It has a lengthy description of the laws of kashrut. It talks about how when there are needy in your society, you should not harden your hearts and you have an open hand. And then it ends with the holidays, the Torah holidays of Pesach, Sukkot, Shavuot, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. In the Haftorah, there's some very interesting sentences. It says, B'tzedakah tokonani, you shall be established through righteousness and justice. It has the famous expression, Kol banayach limudei Adonai, all your children shall be students and disciples of God, and much peace should then dwell among them. And an expression that used to be above the opening entrance of my old synagogue from this Haftorah: all who are thirsty, come and drink. So how do we assess Od Avinu Chai? Well, in terms of living Jewishly, just take two examples here. Do the Jewish people observe kashrut? Well, from where I sit, right now in Skokie, Illinois, there's kosher restaurants all around, kosher grocery store. One of the major Jewish grocery stores is half kosher. A lot of people around here are observing kashrut, but I think kashrut observance has diminished somewhat among the Jewish people. The conservative movement has this project trying to revive interest in kashrut and to make it more ethical by not only having the slaughtering better, but by the requiring that the people who are doing the work in the plants are treated in a more humane way. That's especially important because the Shabbat in which this parsha comes up is, at least locally, Labor Shabbat, and hundreds of synagogues and churches and mosques will be talking about the relationship between religious values and the labor movement. Interesting that in the vice presidential choice of Senator McCain, the governor from Alaska was very proud to announce her husband's a member of the Steel Workers Union. And so we assess whether we observe kashrut or not. And then, of course, we got the holiday chapter in this parsha. Do the Jewish people observe the holidays? When people tell me they observe the holidays, they mean Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Pesach, usually Hanukkah. But of course, the Torah holidays include Sukkot and Shavuot. So make a commitment to build a sukkah this year. And then on the question of learning, we have this beautiful expression, Kol banayach limudei Adonai, all your students should be the students of Torah. The studies are showing that there's a continuing decline in the number of Jewish students enrolled in Jewish preschools in favor of secular preschools. Jewish day school enrollment's dropping. I know that finances are a big part of that. Hebrew school enrollment is dropping. We need to make a commitment to Jewish education in a very substantial way. And one of my priorities has been adult education, not only offering on-site classes here, but knowing that people's schedules are busy, that a lot of learning is taking place on the computer now, trying to offer as much education as I can through the digital world, too, to help bring Judaism to other people. And so we have this notion of, are you studying Judaism on a regular basis? Every day do you learn something new about Judaism? What does it take to watch a 5-minute video? 5 minutes. Learn something new. Read the Parsha. Read a book about Jewish tradition. And finally, I coined this expression that which is not, of course, it's right out of the Torah and Jewish tradition, but it happens to begin with an L in English, to love God and to love your fellow creatures. Two of the most important mitzvot we have. We express our love for God through the revering God and being in awe of God, of worshiping God, and of following God's ways. And the Parsha Re'eh says that I put before you the choice of bracha and klalav, blessing and curse, blessing if you follow my way. That's what God wants us to do, to follow God's way. And to love God with all our hearts in that way. And how do we love our fellows? How do we love our fellows as ourselves? Well, the Parsha says, for example, if there's somebody who's poor and needy, don't harden your heart. And the Haftorah says, with righteousness you shall be sustained, you shall fix the world. Do we, on a daily basis, choose the path of righteousness and charity and giving? And so, when Carlbach wrote that beautiful song, which is really a prayer, the Jewish people live as my fathers still live, have to assess with these three questions. Do we live Jewishly? Do we learn Jewishly? Do we love God and our fellow creatures in a Jewish context? Through the prism of Parshat Re'eh.